So my name is Thom Kaczmarek. I've been asked to step up to help uncover. I do work normally at University of Arts London, London College of Communication, deal in teaching game design, also outreach to the youth. And I've got three amazing speakers with me. Let me start to my left. We've got Jade.
Yes.
Leamcharaskul. Do you want to introduce yourself, or you want me to introduce you?
I could probably do it. Might make it easier.
Go for it.
So, slight mic thing. Okay. Yes. So, hello. My name is Jade Leamcharaskul. I am the audio producer at Silver Ring Games, and I've been over there for just over a year. Previously, I was a freelance music composer, and I will fiddle with this in a moment. So I've been a freelance music composer for roughly about 10 years in the industry, so I've been around in the industry for a little while. I also run communities in London, so one which is Game Dev London. So I currently work with Tom at Game Dev London, which is really, really cool. So previously before that, it used to be called Game Dev Lunch. So I just run a lunchtime social meeting in the library, and we grew over the pandemic lockdown era into Game Dev London. I'm also a member of POC in Play, so we just curate spaces for people of color within the industry, and we just try to create a community with like-minded individuals and individuals that come from various different, basically non-white background, basically, and we're just trying to create a safe space for all of us in here. So that's me. Hello.
Well, we also have joining with us online, Leah, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Leah Muwanga-Magoye. I'm a narrative designer and a writer. I'm currently story lead at Die Gute Fabrik on a new narrative-driven game, and I freelance as well as a narrative designer for streamers. That's me.
Splendid. Thank you very much. And last but not least,
I think I guess it's in the title anyway, but the relevance of my appearance on this panel is I'm part of Ensemble for 2022.
Yeah, totally. And last but not least, we've got Taiwo.
Hi everyone, I'm Taiwo Omishore. I work full-time as a solutions engineer, but I also work as an app developer in my free time. So I've made 8 apps in total, 7 of those being games, and 1 social media app, both on iOS and Android native, using Unity and a whole host of other different IDEs.
Nice.
Right. So Ensemble, it's already in its 4th edition.
Wow, already. That's amazing.
And if I remember correctly, Jade, you were in the first cohort.
Yes, I was in. I was
back in
in
2018, pre-pandemic,
when people were allowed to be outside. So I was in the first round of Ensemble, which I remember. I think I messaged Shana, and I was just like, "Hey, this sounds really cool. Like, can I be a part of it? I want to help out." And I ended up being featured. So I was just like, "Oh, okay. This is great." So if you don't know me, the first round of Ensemble people, we were all photographed, and the pictures were in black and white. So yes, I was the black and white round of those.
Also, one of the speakers yesterday at Karizon was Anissa Sanusi, which was Ensemble member from 2019. So it's good to see people coming back, still being present in the industry, and all of them you can find out in the indie zone. You've got the whole panel and so forth. And each of you as members of Ensemble was providing a little bit of backstory to yourself, kind of like context. How did you enter the industry? What things inspired you? And I kind of wrote myself a little notes here and there to see how it goes. Taiwo, as you were previously last, now I'll start with you. You do some teaching to members of the BAME community, to female, to inspire them to enter STEM fields,
nice.
Which is amazing. So I always point out to my students that the whole computing industry, it was initially female-dominated all the way to 60s, 70s, and only then it kind of flipped. But how you are finding it these days, and also Jade and Leah, like how you seeing yourselves in this kind of very tech, bro, heavy setting.
Yeah.
I mean, I can
start
start. So with me, when I think about when I started learning how to program and dabbling with Flash games, there wasn't a lot of resources in terms of books, videos, any sort of tutorials on how to do anything. So it was very much like a bootstrap operation, and it was only because one of my primary school teachers noticed that I had a liking for computers, kind of persuaded my mum to get the internet, and this was like, we had a Windows 95 computer. We was like the first family on the street to get the internet. It was like 28 KPS dial-up internet, and my mum hated it because she couldn't use the phone whenever we went online. But it was like, I really hoped that being a mentor and teaching people and saying like, look, this is a viable career option, this is something that you can do. I've got all the time in the world for it. If anyone ever emails me or says, Ty, can we meet up for a coffee? I'm not sure if computing or STEM subjects is for me. More than happy to engage and talk about it because I didn't have those opportunities when I was growing up.
Jade?
Just, a high five. We were like starting off in Flash because that's how I started off with. Were you a Flash ActionScript 2 or an ActionScript 3 person?
Three all the way.
Okay, I started on 2, but yeah. So yeah, when I was in school as well, I grew up in a very typical Asian family, so I was heavily encouraged to, study piano, go violin lessons, ballets, swimming lessons, French, and Chinese school. And I was just like, oh, okay, you don't say no to your parents, especially in an Asian household. But it just so happened that my dad bought me a PlayStation 1 as a, oh, well done for passing your grade 3 exam. So through that, I played Final Fantasy, so that is still my favorite video game series ever. And I remember playing Final Fantasy 9 and just being very inspired by the story, the characters, and the music. And as a kid, to have an emotional impact, when you're younger, you're going to be a bit edgy and be like, I don't cry, I cried a lot. And I remember it was, I guess, spoiler alert, in Final Fantasy 9, the character finds out something about himself, and he's just like, I thought who I was just wasn't that. And so he's pushing all his friends away, and all his friends are going like, no, don't, you're still our friend. We still want to hang out with you. And yeah, the story was really powerful, the music was really powerful, and I had to stop playing and restart the PlayStation to replay that scene again. And from there, I was like, wow, music had such an impact on me. And then I took my music lessons a bit more seriously, and then that kind of helped formulate what I wanted to do in school, and yeah. So that's how I got into, I guess, games in the end.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Leah?
Sorry, could you repeat the question again? Was it more
Sure.
around gender or how we got in? Or?
Sure. So my question was teaching people of color, female, about entering STEAM industry, which is, I know you're more a narrative designer, so you're more on the humanities side of the things, of the games. But still, as far as I remember, you went to event at Victoria and Albert Museum from Black Gamers, and that kind of show you, oh, I can be part of this industry despite not having that STEM background. And how is it like for you, how you're finding it?
Yeah, actually, it was prior to that. It was the Ensemble exhibition. I forget where it was. It was somewhere near the British Museum. But yeah, no, Jade, it was your black and white series.
Oh, thank you.
That really began it, because I think it's what's interesting about Ensemble. It's not just the portraiture, and each year, as Jade said, has its own distinct style. It's not. Josh, our amazing photographer, always has something to say with the exhibitions, and that one was very classic. But it's also huge. It's very big. It's very. It makes you feel like these people are important, and so therefore that makes you feel like you're important as well. And so every aspect of the narrative of just the way that the exhibition is put together and then photographed, and the attention to detail and the intent behind it is so welcoming, and it's so inclusive, but it's also so, it's clear that it's not just for the sake of it. There's a kind of a beating heart underneath it. So it's very much Shana and Michael who are just the best. But in any case, I felt that, and then I went to the V&A exhibition, and it just felt like kismet. I was doing my MA at Central St. Martin's, actually, at UAL, in dramatic writing, and it was a multidisciplinary course in that we learned about the foundations of storytelling, but like you could apply it to various different things. And I was always very attracted to games. Or more interactive. And it's funny you say it's more the humanities side, because I think there's a lot of logic, there's a lot of systems in the way that you think about constructing narrative design that it requires you to think in a way that's, potentially more logical. Although I think, story is very much about putting things together in a way that inspires people to restart their PlayStation and see the scene again. So that was the, spark, as it were, that lit the fire, that or continued to burn the fire. And then in terms of I think it's interesting, Jade, you're saying in your household, it was a very much don't say no to your parents. I think I was very blessed in. Or not blessed, they tried, but I'm trying to do it more, is have a household that rather than children don't say no to parents, have a household where parents always say yes and to their children, so that they can create a context for why violin or piano or maths or whatever would be important. And I guess that's what Ty does, he's saying how can you contextualize STEM or these ideas that are seem very far away and bring them closer to me, so I can see, that's where I would fit in, that's why I would do it. And I think a lot of what I appreciate about Ensemble and what I always try to do is, and it feels very daunting when people say, you're in the industry. I don't really feel like I am. I feel like I'm, whatever that is, I feel like I'm industry adjacent. But it feels like when you say things like that, it feels very, not you per se, but when you feel like you're trying to break into something, it implies that there's a barrier, that there is something that you have to work very hard to move through. And I'm always like, how can we bring that down and just understand that all narratives are going to be the ones that you create. There's no one way to do anything, particularly in an industry or a profession as young as gaming. So it's always about trying to say, think very creatively about what you like and what people need, and how can those two things come together so that you can have, for as long as it's a capitalist society, so you can have something that pays your bills.
No, totally. It's you brought up some interesting points that I just wanted to talk about. Taiwo did mention on his poster that diversity breeds creativity, 100%. Right? That representation is important, as we can see, Jade being, part of that first Ensemble cohort, and even Ensemble being a thing, it kind of inspired other people to enter industry, to break into. But even when they are there is that sort of imposter syndrome. I don't belong to the industry, I'm just adjacent to it. I'm on the sidelines. But no, you are. If your name is in the credits, even if it's free game, you are part of the industry, really.
Yep.
But what's your experience with that? We can start with Jade.
Oh, so what is your experience as in imposter syndrome or?
Yeah, being part of industry.
Part of the industry, oh gosh.
It's no, it's for you, so your parents were kind of forcing you to do the music part. You didn't want it, but then game impacted you so much that you said that, oh, this will be my lifetime career.
Yeah.
And here you are.
I would say I wouldn't say forced. I mean like heavily encouraged will be a much better way to say it. But yeah, so once I would say like it is definitely a lot easier to try and figure out where you want to go once you've figured out what you want to do in a way. So I would say that I was lucky that I knew I wanted to do something with music or something audio related, and I knew I wanted to work in video games because that was a really nice merge into that. But I was also like, okay, this is going to show my age here. But when I was looking at universities and like, oh, what can I study? There wasn't like a straightforward like, you will learn how to write music for video games. Because like this was still like more than 10 years ago, really. I would say like I entered university in around 2007-ish, so it was a little while back where there wasn't such a kind of like a huge range of, you know, computer sciences or game development. And like there are like video game courses here, and then you can start to specialize, but it wasn't that many. There were like maybe like a few, but they were like in far off places which I wasn't like comfortable into like traveling, or it didn't quite suit me. So in the end, I went into university, which is Basketball University, and I studied creative music tech. And yeah, it made like sense. It's still music and technology in a way. So just like, okay. And luckily it did have like the one game audio model where we dabbled in Flash and just like, oh, there's an interactive environment. And then you can like figure out, oh, audio reacts differently depending on the proximity. So I was like kind of coding it that way. And then for my dissertation, I made my own game, also in Flash. so that's when I'm just like, that's when I was really thinking about like, okay, I'm glad that I went on to this course and I picked up all these audio skills, but I'm also really glad that it allowed me the options to choose what I wanted to specialize in. So like, okay, mixed media, Flash, and okay, so I didn't know what Unity or whatever other programming stuff was out there apart from Flash, because that was what they had. So I'm like, okay, there's a thing, I can make it interactive and I can do audio in it. And yeah, so that's how I build up a portfolio, I would say. And then I did a master's and I panicked because I'm like, well, what do you do? I've been so used for, you know, someone telling me like, oh, this is your, I guess, life trajectory. You should go to school, you should go to university. But then after university, you are on your own. And I'm like, okay. So after university, sorry, this is a long story. After university, that's when I was like, okay, I had to figure out how to network and all that, because my only gaming reference was Final Fantasy and more like Japanese-made games. So it's either move to Japan and be very anxious and all that because it's such a different environment, or whether I can, you know, like make something here. So that's when I started Game Dev Lunch. I went to all these different networking events, and then I went to Game Dev Lunch, and I found my community, and then that's how it all started. Yeah.
We'll get back to Game Dev Lunch later. Yeah.
Sorry, that was a very long-winded answer, but yeah.
I think on imposter syndrome, like, it's definitely like a real thing. I think me as a solo independent developer for mobile applications, it's really difficult to find people in a very, very similar position. So they have a full-time job which, you know, supplements a lifestyle, pays the mortgage, pays the bills, but you kind of want to get into the industry, but you don't have the, I don't know, maybe the money coming in, the revenue coming in from the app development. So I've made a ton of different games, and, you know, it always makes me smile when people get in touch and say, you know, oh, I played through your game through the pandemic and it, you know, it helped me through a really rough time, or I play your game every single day, or I threw my phone out the window because I was so frustrated because your game's so hard. So no matter what the context is, it kind of reminds me that, hey, I am an actual developer and I do belong to be in here. But when I go to conferences and the companies that I work for, I've often been the only person of color within the technical department. So whether that's engineering or kind of more back-end stuff, I've always been that person. So it's difficult to, to feel like I fit in, but then also when I go online and I'm looking for inspiration or to talk to people that are in a similar position, it's also quite difficult because mobile gaming is very different from PC gaming and console gaming. And me just being by myself, I have to be a designer, a marketer, a coder, sound person. So the imposter syndrome is really, really real. But, being here, being part of Ensemble, being an advocate, to say, hey, look, I hope that people that look like me in similar situations don't feel the same coming up in the industry as well.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So I had I made notes as you guys were talking, and I do have to reframe it. I don't know that I would say what I was saying was, by saying I don't feel part of the industry, it's less imposter syndrome. I feel like I've worked long enough and hard enough that I know that I'm very good at what I do. And so if somebody asks, like, what's your favorite thing about your job? Like, why do you like that? I can talk to you for hours. Jade, story was not long in comparison to how long I could talk to you about story and narrative design. However, when I say I don't feel part of the industry, I think what I'm saying is that words, mean things, but they mean things to different people, and therefore, and they become frameworks. They become a way they become narratives, a way of understanding what something is. And so when people say industry, we were very, very wonderfully invited to the BAFTA Awards on Thursday, was it? Yeah. And it was wonderful to see so many Black women as presenters. But when you looked at who the winners were, it was very, very specifically, there was a very specific demographic who won the prizes, who were lauded, who were validated. And whilst that'll take time, I know like Jade's at Silver Rain and Corey from year 29, Corey and Abu Bakr from his year as well, 2018. Like Silver Rain is basically the best possible outcome of Ensemble is that relationships are created and then a space is made where a company that is unlike any other, having a Black man as the founder, a woman as the studio lead, having all these different types of voices together, and they're because of their talent and because of what they do, is not, to me, the industry. That is not something that I see. That is not something that, I understand that word to mean. So that's when I say, like, I don't feel like I'm an imposter in what I do. I feel like I'm not welcome based on the narrative, the visual, and like to me, like a narrative is action. It's what's actually done, not what's said, not words, but like who gets money, who gets to be the one who speaks and receives an award. What spaces, as Ty was saying about conferences, what do they look like? And what the conference looks like is they're telling you, this is who we are, this is what we do, which is what it is. And I don't think frameworks in and of themselves are bad. They're not moral, they're not good or bad. But what you have to do is interrogate them because they are just constructs. And you have to interrogate how useful is it for you? How useful is it for you to think of yourself as part of something that clearly doesn't reflect you? And then you have to think, okay, well, where am I gonna find my why? And I think it's so lovely to hear Ty be like, his why is very much how can you make sure that people don't go through what you did or create what it is that you would have wanted and needed. And that's certainly mine in terms of the stories that I want to tell and I try to tell is very much what would I want to experience, what would I want to do. So yeah, I think that's all of them. Oh yeah, so yeah, and I think Jade was saying about how she found her community. She did a lot of networking, and I think another thing that struck right. And this is the thing, I think we're so fortunate. Although Jade, I love the way you're like, I'm so old, I started university in 2007. I'm like, I graduated in 2008 and I took a gap year and I went to a 4-year university. So I'm like elderly in comparison to you. However, I digress. The point is, you need to find your community, and it's really, for me, I don't like people. I do. I mean, they're great. They're, fine. But I don't like to be places when I don't understand why we're there. If it's not like a specific thing, I can't do small talk. I can't pretend. I hate it. Yep. And so finding people who fascinate me because of what they do, or finding spaces where I don't feel so anxious has been a priority, and that's fine. I think that's another thing to just really listen to yourself when you are quote unquote networking, is try not to think of it as like a transactional thing, like what can this person do for me? Try to think about it as where are relationships that I can build, like spending time in this person's company makes me feel inspired, makes me feel calm, makes me feel better. And however that time is spent, if it's online, if it's in whatever way that you can feel a connection, lean into that, and don't think, oh, because I don't do it in this way, it's not right. Again, I think if there's a tagline of write a t-shirt, it would just be really, really interrogate narratives, interrogate what you understand to be the right way to do stuff, because again, it's just a construct, it'll change. And you can change it for yourself, just by deciding to. But you do have to do that every day, because the inputs from around the world, as I said, the visual narratives you see of this is where power lies, this is what's supposed to be the way, it'll be constant. So you need to find your community and your own internal reason for doing things, so that you can push through. And and just really embrace the fact that you're you. I think Ty was saying about how no one else, he's one of one. Who else is an independent app developer who does the specific things in the way that he does it, who's had the background he's had and whatnot. And sometimes that can feel isolating, but I guess if you just, again, change your perspective, is that's unique, that's remarkable, that's something necessary in the world, is you as you are, not trying to fit into anything else, which is something that I learned in my many years alive. Jade, say I'm elderly.
High five
is
as well.
That no, okay, you cannot join me in my age club. But last thing I would say is that I'm a narrative designer and a writer now. When I did classics at university, I then went into investment banking in 2008. I then helped my friend in startups and was trying to figure out stuff. I then was in production and then directing and editing, and every single thing that I did has helped me, but I never defined myself by what I did. I always tried to find what am I interested in? How can I evolve? Not discard everything, but how can I build on the skills that I've got? And now I've gotten to the place that I'm a narrative designer and a writer. But the other thing is never to try to box yourself into a title that you understand, because you can limit yourself. Just to let yourself move. I say all that and I sound really sure about myself and my life and my choices. I'm not. Again, it's a daily thing, but I wish someone had said that to me. So let yourself evolve.
Absolutely.
I don't know how that came from imposter syndrome, but I hope it means something to you.
Hey, that's what game dev is about. We can make anything out of everything, But it's something you were talking on your poster on Ensemble. It's, to be conscious about all those exclusion narratives that are kind of present in our industry. And also that there's huge importance of democratization of access and creation. Something like Taiwo mentioned, I'm coming to a studio, I'm the only person of color there. And do you know that a lot of industry networking is getting a bad rep for many reasons? One of which is that most of it is based in the settings, let's call it, typical for English culture, pub, with alcohol. So people like myself, who do not drink, feel rather excluded and have to put up with everyone else who do not know when to stop. And that's one of many reasons why you started the lunches.
Yeah,
if I remember from yesterday's talk.
Yeah, so jumping, I guess sidestepping from the imposter syndrome as well. It was very weird to enter trying to enter into the industry more formally and trying to like network and talk with people and be like, yeah, I am the only person of color in this room, and I don't drink. Like, I guess I only started to drink because, you know, I will buy the one drink from the bar to be polite, and then I have something in my hand to hold and, like, sip very slowly throughout all the night. But it's that the one thing in terms of, like, oh, I am going to network to change myself, and then I can get better at talking to people. This is just a promise to myself. And, like, okay, I want to be in this industry. I want to make a space for myself in this industry. So I'm going to, like, you know, keep pushing myself forward until it got to the point where, oh, I'm organizing my own events. And then I can get people to come to me. And then I also like, okay, I'm a bit more comfortable with talking to people. I can allow myself to go up to people and say, hi, I'm Jade, I'm the host. If you have any questions, please come talk to me. And then there's the other side of like, there's a space here, but again, like I don't see anyone who looks like me. You know, the conversations that a lot of POC people have within our own communities as well is just like was mentioned earlier, just like with the BAFTAs. I'm like, okay, that's interesting, and like seeing like what the structure is and how it's been maybe evolving over the years, and yeah, no, so there's like I guess like the personal side of imposter syndrome, which you can approach and try to better yourself. And then on a more bigger scale of like the imposter syndrome of like, do I belong in this? Do other people see me as belonging in this industry? Because like you mentioned, like, okay, it's a very like pub heavy drinking culture. And I remember going to one really, really big event in Gamescom and people were just like, what do you want to drink? What do you want to drink? And then they looked at me and I'm like, apple juice. It's the same color as everyone's beer. And then the next one just like tea. So yeah, it's just like, you know, so even after all of that, I'm just, screw it. Give me my tea. I would like some tea. So yeah, I say like, yeah, imposter syndrome is like, I guess, especially for us, there's like definitely different layers and faces to it. Sorry, I don't know if that answered your question.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like it's really interesting to hear both stories about kind of networking and, you know, feeling of self-worth. And, you know, when I think about the things that I've done by myself, like when I really think about what I've done is actually quite mind-blowing because, you know, I started off, my first job was a baker, which I really enjoyed. I mean, who doesn't like baked goods? I was like everyone's best friend. So starting off as a baker, and then when I graduated, I started work as a buyer for a large retail company. And on that train, so I had an hour and a half commute, so I had 3 hours every single day to kill, and I was building this application, and I would go up to random people on the train and say, really sorry to bother you, would you mind playing this game that I built on iPhone? And people would look at me very strange because that's like their time to read a book or whatever, but people would play and people would give me some really good feedback, but that helped in my confidence. That was like a skill that I picked up along the way, working for a big company in the head office, you know, doing public speaking, you know, talking to people that were, you know, several levels above me and organizing meetings. These were all skills that I took that were very helpful for the day job, but also helped me in my job as an app developer because I could manage multiple projects. You know, I've got an app update on Android, and I also am building an app for iOS, two completely different code bases. But the skills that I obtained over my career, you know, would really, really help me with those particular things. And I think what you were saying about networking not being a transactional thing is also really important because I just like people. I like getting to know people. One of my apps, the social media app, is an app called Who Am I? People download it. You answer that one question, who you are, and that's it. There's no likes, there's no messages. People from 60 different countries have used the app And people email me and say, hey, I met someone who has answered the question in your app, and we got on really well, and sent them a message. And it's like this kind of, simple concept, but it kind of just peels it back and, takes a step back and say, people like talking to other people, and it doesn't have to be about what can I get from this relationship. So I just really like talking to people, and I don't think about networking as a way of, this person works at a big studio, talking to them is going to help me get my next job. I just think, oh, it's cool that you work for a big studio. How is it? Is it good? Would you recommend it? So I think being in an industry where you can be yourself, I don't drink as well, so going to a pub is my idea of a meeting in hell, because I'm kind of like you say, buy a drink and then you're sipping it for the rest of the night. But you want to feel like you're comfortable, so I really like coffee, so let's get a coffee instead. Why don't we have a coffee and a baked treat? I can bake.
Yes.
I think it's all about just being yourself, and I think the gaming industry is great for that. I've met some incredible people, and being comfortable in your own skin is really important. I don't think I answered the question, but I hope I've got something out of that. But
It's good.
I took notes again from that. If I can reflect back, is that okay?
Yeah, go
Tom,
for it. Go.
You are the moderator, so I don't want to. Yeah, so I was thinking that, oh my days, Tai, your idea of hell is exactly the same as mine, apart from people would be talking about the weather. And it would be cold and dark, and I have to get the tube, and I don't want to be there. So I'm very similar, and it's so interesting. Jade, you were saying that to be polite, you would have bought a drink back in the day. I think I don't know if it's a function of my neurodiversity or my dad's stubbornness, which actually potentially is the same. It fundamentally would come from my dad. But I am I will always be kind and respectful, but I will never just be polite and nice, because again, to me, those are constructs that are useful for some people and really detrimental to others. This idea of propriety, this idea of what you're supposed to do, and Lord knows that where am I? I'm in Dublin. But certainly the island in which I was born is known for constructing ideals that benefit some and not others, and one of those things is this idea of a culture that is lubricated by something. And I don't drink, I don't want to, so I'm not going to. I am driven by, I think, maybe caffeine and spite. I will, have a coffee with you, and I will endure because you think I couldn't. Oh no, I think I've changed, but I endure because of connection and joy. But the point being, what I've discovered is that authenticity is actually quite attractive, and it's quite useful as well, because it drains my energy to be with people for whom I have to perform. That was not. I learned dramatic writing in drama center, but I'm I respect the craft of acting. I cannot do it because it's a lot of energy, and I won't do it in my normal life. So I will always be kind. That's what I was trying to say, is that I'll be kind and respectful. But the idea that I need permission, to seek permission to be in a space is something that I'm actively rejecting, so that I can. And in doing so, I think I find people like me. I think it's, I already just adore our R8, our Ensemble 22 group is just my heart. And I wonder that it's a function of the way that Shana and Michael curate and find people is they're very like-minded. And so there's this beautiful connection made. And often you think the world is quite small, that no one will get you. That no one will, want to go to lunch or to coffee with you. They'd want to go to the pub. But actually, there's so many people. If you be yourself, it gives other people permission to be themselves, and they'll, be attracted to you. And again, with the democratization of all of these ways of creating and then ways of experiencing, connections can be formed, and that's fundamentally who we are as human beings. So the only obligation you have, I think, every day is to work really hard, and it does take a lot of energy to be yourself, to reject other things. But yeah, I think the other thing I wrote down was that that substance over superficiality is something, again, it's another way of saying I think that authenticity is attractive, is that you have to have something to say, even if you're not sure of what it is, even that journey, that confusion, other people will be attracted to it. Other people will be like, oh, that who am I is, said something to me and clarified something for me. So yeah, just trying your best in a world that tells you to be, that there is a way to be, that there is a normal, trying constantly to fight against that. The other thing I wrote down actually was that I love that Tai started as a baker because it explains so much. He's still, I gave him a hug goodbye at the BAFTAs and he still smells really good. And I was like, I wonder that that's why he was like, so he people gravitate towards him, because in supermarkets, they pump the smell of baked goods in to like keep people there and make people happy. So if you started out as a baker, like you're already I think that's all the things I wrote down.
Amazing.
No, but it's also like an interesting point you were kind of like floating around. It's like, how much, if you want to enter industry, network within industry, you stay true to yourself or change yourself to be the person you think others want you to be. And I don't know that, Leah, you mentioned on your Ensemble poster that you were seeking out for companies with similar values to yours, but then when reality kicked in and things weren't as colorful and you step up for yourself, the one way of some issues could have been resolved was requiring structural change within the company, or let's say, as we mentioned before, potentially BAFTAs or other, facilities. And it's quite hard, isn't it? It's like kind of something that you, Taiwo, mentioned on your poster, to kind of like never give up, because it is effectively constantly like uphill grind, uphill battle, and you need to reach out, like we need to talk about things, otherwise they're not being dealt with. So yeah, any last thoughts on that? I know, kind of like big subject, but I want people not to live on the sad note, but kind of being inspired to seek for more information rather than, I don't know, any of you can start.
I would say that, it's incredible that we're in this position now talking about our lives, our struggles, and I don't think that it's all doom and gloom. I think, this is testament to the fact that it's a positive thing, but we also have to be realistic and, truthful, that it is quite a difficult uphill struggle to change the narrative, to change companies' cultures, what is tried and tested and works, and you come in and you're disruptive, people are going to be resistant to that. But we have to keep pushing forward, because we know that, this is the outcome of it, the apps that we make, the programs that we make, the digital experiences that people enjoy every single day is the outcome of that. So I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it's a positive thing. And probably my mum really regrets getting a Nintendo Entertainment System for me and my twin brother when we were 4, because I think it set up a chain of events that have led me here. So so ever since, kind of being small, it's kind of like, this is a challenge, how do we overcome it? This is a challenge, how do we overcome it? And I think people watching this and, seeing our pictures, part of Ensemble, a little boy, a little girl, anyone who sees it and says, hey, I can actually do this. Like, this is a feasible thing that we can do. So with the negative side of it, turning it into a positive, I think it's great.
Jade?
Oof. Yeah, no, likewise. I think the bigger part of it is mostly about, huge structural change and making it sure that, I don't know, it's like, for example, like COVID and the pandemic and how like a lot of structural change had to happen for us to adapt. So it's sometimes like, oh, we aren't adapting quick enough, or we adapted too quick so it wasn't working, and it's still figuring that out. But also like, humans change constantly. All the stuff that we make are all changing constantly. Dialogue is constantly happening. So how can the structural change keep up to that? And it is a difficult thing, but Tai, like you said earlier, it's like having all these options, having the space to converse and discuss, but then also, I guess, maybe strength, or I don't know, the resources to actually take action as well, to like, okay, hey, this doesn't work, let's rejig things, let's restructure this element, but also, I guess, also with the intention of like, oh, we are doing this to make things better, not because we just want to change as well. Yeah. There's so many nuances, and it's multifaceted, and like, I don't have a nice, clean,
it could be next
answer.
Panel.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Yeah. So that's where I currently sit. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, excuse me. I was going to say, oh Lord, sorry. The way you started was talking about my disappointment or disillusionment with companies going from believing what they said and then seeing what they did. I think it is really difficult, but again, I think it's what you do is just adapt to the information as you get it, and you continue. But it's also equally important, I think, for you yourself to be to think about what do you actually do. So I'm sorry, I forget, but there was a question you were asking Jade earlier about what do you do if the industry is saying you're not part of it and whatnot. And I think rather than think, sorry to keep harping on about it, well, I'm not sorry, but to keep harping on about it, rather than thinking about, I want to be in something, I want to be part of this ephemeral thing whose meaning changes, think about what do you want to do? Like, what do you, if you, because that's fundamentally the only thing you can work on is, what do you want? What will make the journey, the chain of events to other places worthwhile? Is doing something that you're interested in, and as I say, that can change and evolve, and that in that change and evolution requires, I think, the fundamental thing, that the hope, I guess, at the bottom of the Pandora's box. That is this talk, is I think connections with other human beings, in however way that you form them, are the things that keep you going when it's, it will be so many more failures, so many more no's than yeses. But that's okay. It is hard, but that's okay, because if you can find ways to connect to other people who, when you're down, they remind you can keep going, or when you're okay, you have the very great privilege to bring them up and to inspire them. That's the thing that keeps going, because there's no there. Like you'll never get to this brilliant whatever. It's just honestly about the journey, and the only thing that makes that worthwhile is other human beings. So finding ways to connect as you, with what you do, not with what you say, not with the appearance of who you'd like to be, but really like with what you have to give to any situation. That's, I think, where you can find hope and positivity, because as I said, like with Tai and with Jade as well, like there's no one, and I'm certain with you as well, Tom, you haven't told us much about yourself.
And on this high note, I believe we can finish. Actually, we're out of time.
I was just want to say that that you be you, and that is great, because that will keep you going.
No, thank you. Thank you much. So, yeah.
Are we out of time?
Yeah, we're slightly over.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was an hour. I didn't realize it was 50 minutes.
Yeah, actually, that's what happened, but yeah. So yes, thank you much. Obviously, we'll be still here around if anyone from the crowd would like to ask questions, but we'll have to move to the next panel that starts at 2. if I remember. So
okay.
sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's really good.
So
Can
thank
we
you.
get coffee and cake afterwards?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Thank
do it.
you.
We'll send you some cookies.
No problem.